Section86.com. We're changing the world of podcasting one show at a time.
86 Productions.
Take what you wanna take. Don't leave me here. Lasting leap years ever your fear of the one and only love.
Hello and welcome to Off the Mark, the best podcast providing the most in-depth insight and analysis into the world of professional wrestling. On today's show, we have Aaron, Roger, and Doug to join me as we discuss this month's View from the Turnbuckle. So, Aaron, we got to talk about it. Enzo Amore is in hot water. What's going on with this?
Yeah, so Enzo, and I think we kind of touched on it a little bit last month. Apparently, he has been rubbing people the wrong way. Apparently, the character Enzo is not too far off from Enzo the person. And I liked Enzo the character, but back in the locker room, if he was talking like that, I could see that getting really annoying really fast. And apparently he was thrown off the bus by none other than Roman Reigns, thrown off a bus last month. He's invited people to the locker room who did not follow proper etiquette, and they would just take pictures, and they were fairly annoying, I guess. So, and that could be a potential reason that they broke up. Was because that him and Cass broke up was because they thought, look, we're probably going to get rid of Enzo, so we want to push Cass to the moon.
Yeah, this is everything that I've heard too. And you know what? Too bad for Enzo. I find him entertaining. The other rumors are the only reason he's sticking around is because his merch sales. And as soon as those start to drip, he is going to be out of the business entirely. Something else also that I heard was that he was dissing on the business itself. Which is definitely a why would you ever do that in front of other people that are in the business with you? That's definitely going to get back to Vince and definitely not going to go over very well. So good luck to Enzo in his future endeavors sometime soon, probably.
Yeah, I mean, let's be clear about this. I like Enzo, but he's replaceable. He's a good talker. I'd even say he's a fantastic talker, but he is not a main event player. Like, you have to kind of know your place. Brock Lesnar can get away with that. Brock Lesnar can say he doesn't really care about wrestling. And guess what? Brock Lesnar is a draw. He can say that. John Cena can say that. Enzo Amore can't say that. And hopefully, I doubt it's going to humble him, but hopefully he learns his lesson because I do find him entertaining. But this is probably the end of his career. And like Doug said, we wish you the best in your future endeavors.
Well, he is going to 205 Live, so hopefully he could do something over there. I just hope that he knows his place there, but I guess let's wait and see on that. But the other big thing that happened was that during the match, actually during their street fight, Big Cass actually landed funky on his knee, and he's going to be out 9 months. I mean, this is a huge deal. I mean, what do you think about what's going on with Big Cass now, Roger?
Bad timing. I mean, it's kind of the story of the Raw call-ups, right? I mean, look at what happened to the Revival, and you could say the same thing about Cass. He's getting a monster push. The only good thing I can say about this is that right now he was lost in the shuffle, right? There's too many big guys. Brock's there. Braun Strowman's taking off. He's hot. So Cass was always going to be kind of in that mid-card. Maybe if he comes back and is a little bit more fresh in 9 months, they can repackage him, put him back with Enzo, do whatever. Maybe he has a chance. Because I think right now he's guaranteed to fail. And this injury, and hopefully it's not career-threatening, despite the fact that I found him boring. I don't want him hurt. He needs something. So maybe this time away he can improve in the ring and get better on the mic, and hopefully they got direction for him.
Yeah, and I actually think that it was kind of a little bit of a blessing. Obviously, any injury is not very good, but similar to like Finn, I think that Finn getting injured was actually kind of a good thing because he was pushed he had a rocket shoved up his butt and was thrown to the moon pretty much when he first came into Raw. And I feel like it was very similar for Cass. They went the wrong route with him and Enzo, and it's obviously shown. I kind of felt pretty bad about it at first, and it really just showed their weaknesses. Cass can't talk, Enzo can't wrestle. You have to put them together, and I think that the time off may be good for him because if they have a spot for him when he comes back, or if they decide, look, you two are better together, and if Enzo happens to still be there and he humbles a little bit, maybe those two could have a tag team run.
It'll be interesting to see. I was predicting that Enzo would help Cass in the Big Show match, and then they could do that because of the fact that you have Enzo, who is such a great talker, and Big Cass, who can wrestle, mostly because he's a big guy. But he is so boring, and his insults are horrible. I mean, it's almost like listening to Roman Reigns for almost. But it's just it's sad to see anybody get injured, but I hope that this is also something that, you know what, if you bring him back, I'd say bring him back to NXT. Have him come back, establish some dominance down in NXT before you bring him back up so that he could be even at least a mid-carder. I don't see anything big out of Big Cass. So unless you have him with Enzo Amore, I don't care for him, and you can in future endeavor him also.
Just like GFW did with Alberto Del Rio, or I'm sorry, Alberto El Patron. He is out of GFW altogether, and Eli Drake is now the new title holder. I mean, Doug, did this surprise you, the whole thing that's been going on with Del Rio or El Patron, whatever you want to call him?
I think it surprised me most that they were willing to take the gamble of giving him the title in the first place. This is a known history that he has. It's going to continue and continue and continue. I do not understand why you would ever put your faith into this man to be something that you want to market your whole company behind. So, shame on them for doing it in the first place. But now they're at least making the right movements now and moving forward without him. Good for them, and hopefully, something will work out in the future for him.
Yeah, I mean, I tend to agree with Doug entirely on this one. I mean, Del Rio's a piece of crap, and he's kind of proven it throughout his career. This is not the first time they've gotten into it. I just don't particularly think there's anything special about him. Like I famously said at one point, he'll never be back. Well, he came back. Did he do anything of note? No. Like building around him is not going to be successful in America, as WWE showed, because they basically gave him a super push and he did nothing. And GFW building around him was unbelievably stupid, which is very GFW. And so now, I'm glad they gave it to a guy like Eli Drake because he actually can run with the title and show what he can do. But honestly, if I never see El Patron again, it'll be too soon. I just don't like him. He's not good. He's an okay wrestler. He's a terrible character.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with what you guys have said. And, the less we see of him, the better.
That sounds like something we'd say about Brock Lesnar, but it's not. It's actually the more we see of him, the better, I guess, if you want to look at that from that standpoint. But yeah, so Lesnar retained. I tried to run with it. It didn't work. So anyways, so Lesnar did retain at SummerSlam. I thought this was weird that he did retain, though. I really thought that they're going to put it on either Samoa Joe or, as the biggest swerve, I thought they're going to put it on Reigns, but apparently neither was true. Aaron, what did you think about the match itself?
It was a great match. It was definitely worthy of the main event. The one criticism I would have about it is normally when you have a wrestler go to the back, it's a sympathetic babyface. It's Daniel Bryan, it's Bret Hart, it's somebody that you're looking at and you're like, oh man, look, they're, Mick Foley, like they have it in them. They have to fight. The Brock Lesnar is not that type of person. So minor criticism. He could have just stayed out there, I feel, but whatever. Either way, with that aside, even it was a great match. It was really awesome to see. They really showcased all four people very well, showcased their strengths. Obviously, Strowman and Lesnar were showcased the most. And the fact that they're going to be going one-on-one at the next pay-per-view, that really shows that WWE has a lot of faith in Strowman. And even still, like when we do our predictions, privately or, when we do it just offline, I might pick Strowman. I think that this is a chance here where you could have Strowman win the title if there isn't anything on the line. I am curious what they're going to do with Reigns and with Joe. I think that they should separate for a while. I don't know where you have Reigns go, and I don't know where you have Joe go, because I think that if you do Cena Reigns too soon, that will be a big mistake. And I think that Joe, you don't want to get him lost in the shuffle too much. So I don't know exactly what they're going to do with them right now. As the pay-per-view, after the pay-per-view, though, I think that we'll have a much better understanding of where they're going to go.
So I slightly disagree with you, Aaron, on the point that Lesnar needed to be the sympathetic babyface to do this for two reasons. A, they've done this before. If you remember the Royal Rumble before 31, Rollins and Cena basically took out Brock, and they kind of had him act like he was about to be stretched out before he popped up. And B, and most importantly, it made Strowman look like an absolute monster, that he beat Brock down so badly that Brock had to be stretchered out. Like the fact that he was able to accomplish that and then come out the next night, you saw that, wow, he's actually on the level that you could believe that he could take down Lesnar. And there have not been many people who've been believable in beating Brock Lesnar. Dean Ambrose, there was no chance he was going to beat him at WrestleMania. We never even thought that was going to happen. Goldberg, we were surprised by, but he was built like a monster. So I think it was fine. As far as the match goes, I loved it. I thought it was a car wreck. Job well done. They booked it very well. I'm very surprised that Roman took the pinfall. That's the one thing that I will say I never would have seen coming. Moving forward, I think Joe Cena is probably the feud to go. I don't really know where you go with Reigns. I think it's too early for him to go with Cena. I think he needs to stay away from Lesnar and Strowman. Maybe this is the time they pull the trigger on a Shield reunion. I don't know. I feel like Reigns is kind of directionless right now. So, I mean, I'm slightly curious.
I think this is watching the match. I kept thinking throughout the whole show this has got to be worth it. I've been watching since 4:00 Central Time, and something has to be worth watching it all this show. And I still haven't decided yet if that match was worth watching all that time to get to. But I will say it at least put some doubt in me. That was a wonderful match, and it made all four look strong, especially Braun Strowman. I was so happy knowing that I picked Braun Strowman to win. I actually felt like he had a chance to win. Samoa Joe looked strong, popping out of nowhere to put on the coquina clutch on people. The biggest surprise for me was that Reigns did take the fall. But I think this is going to go into more of the storyline aspect of when Reigns does eventually beat Brock Lesnar for the title. It's just now a matter of when and where. So you already had Lesnar versus Joe. Now you have Lesnar versus Strowman. There you have Lesnar and Reigns at Survivor Series. Do you have the one in between, which is going to be TLC? Tables, ladders, and chairs, be a number one contender match, and you don't even have Brock at that one. Although it's in Minneapolis, Minnesota, so why don't you have Brock at that one? And if Brock is at his home field court, you know what that means in WWE. In a championship match, you lose.
But I do believe that Lesnar may be the exception to that rule.
Lesnar is the exception?
I
think he might be.
For all of you, and that's normally UFC news wouldn't actually affect us. But with the suspension of John Jones, do you think potentially plans changed at the last moment?
I kind of said it before on the SummerSlam show. John Jones is going to come to WWE. So I think if you have him coming to the WWE, if this now changes it and makes him come sooner, then yes, this could be something that's very, very interesting. Maybe set up a WrestleMania match between Lesnar and John Jones. But you're going to need some time to do that and everything like that. So, yeah, you're going to have to take off the title. And I think TLC, though, could be a potential place to do it, because if you're going to have a tables, ladders, or chairs match, why not have a tables match for the title where it's just so easy to, quote-unquote, slip and fall through a table and lose your title? That way it kind of does protect him.
I think Jones would have to cost Lesnar the title to make it worth it, though. Have him come out in some way, throw him through a table. You could do that.
There's a lot of things that you can still do to and I would say that would be a WrestleMania kind of moment, because you have that celebrity aspect and everything like that. I mean, you could easily have Lesnar going back into the Royal Rumble to try to earn back his title and get distracted by John Jones or something like that and run that feud. I think that's something that we're going to have to talk about later, because we could go on for hours about that. As for this match, getting back to the match was great. Brock holding on to the title, not a surprise. I picked Strowman, but I'm not hurt with Lesnar having the title still and going on. I'm very surprised that they're going to go ahead and push the Strowman-Lesnar at the next pay-per-view, which is No Mercy. I thought that would be your Survivor Series kind of match or something like that. But they're going to push it. Go for it. It's going to get a B-rated show automatically. It's one of their lower pay-per-views, and all of a sudden now you just have that one match and everybody's going to pay attention to it because of this fatal four-way at Survivor or SummerSlam.
I will say I do think it's a mistake to run Lesnar Strowman here. And the reason is I think the night after SummerSlam you should have Strowman take out Lesnar. Like, this is the perfect excuse for Lesnar to go on his hiatus, where Strowman comes out and says, I'm not finished with you yet. And he just absolutely decimates Brock. He drives him through three tables. Well, but I'm saying, like, in the sense of, like, This time he stretched out and he doesn't get back up. So you take him out, you let him flip the ambulance, you let him do to what no one has ever really done to Lesnar, which is basically destroy him. And then Lesnar comes back. Basically, you kind of humanize him and you let him come back maybe at No Mercy. And then you have your title. So that way you could have pushed it out because Survivor Series is one of the big four now. It's like the weekends event. That should be your headlining of a big show. I think No Mercy is kind of a throwaway. And yes, it gets eyes on it in the same way Great Balls of Fire does. But if Lesnar Reigns or Lesnar Cena or whatever it is going to be your Mania match, you need something to fill the time in between. And Lesnar Strowman is one of your matches. How are you going to get from all the way to WrestleMania with Lesnar appearing now? That's my only real concern with it. I think the match will be fine. I think they just jumped the gun.
And I just want to let you guys in on some breaking news. Apparently, WWE has now banned beach balls, pool noodles, and any other inflatable objects that can be bounced around in the events.
Didn't Cesaro essentially ban beach ball?
yeah, Cesaro.
You know what? I'm sure he got in hot water for that too, because they were like, "Oh, you brought visibility to it," No,
because they've acknowledged it before.
They said beach ball mania. Michael Cole specifically said that.
Well, you know what they should
emphasized it on the camera. They went to the beach ball instead of watching the match.
If they wanted to ban beach balls, but in a different way, they should have Michael Cole come on and say how cool it is to have beach balls at these live events, and everybody should bring them because he loves beach balls.
No, all you had to say was Roman Reigns loves beach balls.
Right.
Roman Reigns cut it out. Call it hashtag Beach Ball Mania. If you love Roman Reigns, bring your beach ball you'll never see him again.
Actually, what would probably happen is then everyone would be like, yeah, and then start throwing beach balls into every one of his matches. And,
so, speaking of Cesaro, so they lost the tag titles at SummerSlam. Andy, the Shield wins. They get the titles back. Obviously, there's going to be a rematch probably at No Mercy. But let's just say the Shield retains. Who do you think is going to be next up for the Shield to take on?
Well, you got a couple teams. You have, the Club could do it or the Hardys. And I do believe that you have to try and put it back on the Hardys as soon as possible. They keep teasing their new gimmick, the broken gimmick. And I believe that once that's all settled and paperwork has been signed, I think that's when you give it to the Hardys. But, the Club's probably the next best team to put the titles back on. You could also say then you could have the Hardys and the Club, which I thought they were going to feud for a while, but they haven't, because they came into that match and they were not expected to see them. Why wouldn't they feud over the titles? And they never did. So I think that's the next team who actually the Shield should go up against.
I think you're planning way too far ahead. This is we're talking about WWE Creative here, who is probably not even knowing what they're going to do next Monday night. So trying to project on who do you think is going to do it. One, I would love to see the Club try to vie for him. I'd love to see the Hardys vie for him. The one team, though, I really want to see thrive, and it's been so unfortunate that injury after injury has happened, is the Revival, because this is a team that if they're going to succeed in WWE, their best work was when they had the titles in NXT. You run it that way. They were so good at stealing the win or coming away with the win, barely getting away with the win. But in order to do that, you have to have the titles. If you have the Revival feuding with the Shield, when the breaking of the Shield happens again, where Dean Ambrose eventually turns on to Seth Rollins, and that's really the only way the Revival win is because of that. Yeah, it's a weak win, but then that you can have them struggle to keep the belts, but have them keep the belts. Very similar to what they did in NXT. I think it would be very successful. I think people would start getting behind them, and then you eventually, make them pop like the New Day.
So my issue with this, and kind of similar to what I was saying before, is that there's something to letting a moment kind of play out organically. And I know Vince this has kind of been the thing lately, is that, Vince is obsessed with creating moments and not doing long-term storytelling. The whole thing with the Shield is that basically Dean and Seth just got back on the same page. In no way, shape, or form, so them being on the same page for 1 week means they are able to beat the tag team champions. You look at what NXT did, and it was a struggle, and people were behind Gargano and Ciampa when they finally took down the Revival. and you saw teams actually build up. And it's how many times are we going to waste dream matches? Like that match on Monday was fantastic, but that's a pay-per-view match. And they just threw away the Hardys versus the Shield so that they could have something to do on Raw. You don't have a deep division where you can just give away dream matches like this. These are the type of matches you should be giving at pay-per-views. They should be a series. We should be, building a story. And instead of actually building the story of Dean and Seth bonding over the fact that it was a hard-fought loss where they had each other's back, everything's fine and dandy because they win. Yeah, well, there's a saying in sports. Winning cures everything. Well, what's going to happen when they lose? Is Ambrose going to turn on them because they lose? Is Rollins going to turn on them because it's just – I don't know. I don't trust creative to have an in-depth storyline off this. And the easiest way to build a basic storyline was to have them actually have some adversity to overcome as opposed to just winning off the bat. So it is what it is. It was a great match, but long-term, I don't think there was a plan.
Do you think there's even a plan to have the IC title originally on SummerSlam, though, Roger?
No. And I think the reason for that is I think in some way, Miz's character is the forever perpetually slighted champion. Like no matter what he accomplishes, people will always ignore him. He's main evented a WrestleMania. He's beaten a John Cena. He's the Intercontinental Champion. And no matter what, he's always treated as a second rate. Doesn't matter. The fans don't treat him like a main eventer, even though we like him. We don't look at him in that same stratosphere. And no matter what, he's always going to have a complaint with management that he's not treated as the big star that he feels he should be. So I think their plan in their mind was to be like, all right, Miz is champion and we're not going to book him a match, which to me is stupid, but it's kind of something that Vince seems to like to do since the Intercontinental Championship gets bumped at WrestleMania or it's not even defended half the time. So it fits Miz's character perfectly.
I'm sorry, what was the question?
Well, like with Miz, like for instance, right now he's the IC champ. Of course, they're bumped from SummerSlam, and of course, most of the doors weren't even open until halfway through the match. So he doesn't know what a sold-out Barclays Arena looks like, which I thought that line was hilarious. But what are they going to do with him now? I mean, I'm trying to figure that out.
I thought his promo for the start of Raw was so similar to what he did on Talking Smack. I thought it was wonderful. I love that the crowd actually got behind him instead of Cena and everything that he did. It was a wonderful promo, obviously doing the showcase of what about me? What about me? I'm doing this. I'm doing all this work. I should be acknowledged for all this work. And it is something that they should do with him. He has established credibility to the Intercontinental title again. He's made it you want to see who you're going to have feud with Miz. It's entertaining. I can't think of other words to say, but
it's captivating.
Unfortunately, it is. It's captivating. But they're going to screw the pooch on this one again, and you'll see Jason Jordan probably vying for it. I think this would be a perfect opportunity to give the Intercontinental title to somebody who maybe you don't have them in the highest, in the main event, like a Samoa Joe. Seth Rollins. Finn Balor. They're not in the main event picture right now because it is very crowded up there, and rightfully so. I mean, this has been wonderful watching that four-way match. But eventually you got to get back to single matches for the big title. So give Samoa Joe a run at Intercontinental title. Give, I would have rather seen Dean Ambrose or Seth Rollins with the Intercontinental title. Give somebody else a shot at the Intercontinental title and establish them again and make them a name to go then up back to the main event status. Even throw the Miz into the main event status. He's been stuck at that mid-card level for so long that I want to see him have a run not a successful run at the title, but he would be an entertaining person to see in the title match and in the title thing. He does things that are very wonderful. The snake-like things of how to get out of a match or how to quickly run away for this, and then you strike when it's opportunist. Are we talking about the Miz or Randy Orton? No, I am talking about the Miz. Randy Orton's character is so blah. He doesn't speak anymore. He just goes out there, RKO somebody, and walks to the back. But the Miz is done all these things. He has established some credits. Let him have his chance, at least at the Stardom again. I think that they should take the title off of him, but they need to give it to somebody else who needs to not necessarily be established, but kind of help them maintain their high persona.
Well, I think that this goes to the fact that he shouldn't have even been moved off of SmackDown. I think that he would have had a successful title run there, and his character, I think, works better there. SmackDown with Miz as champion is very believable. Him taking the title off of Lesnar, obviously, is a joke. Him taking it from Roman Reigns, not going to happen. Joe, probably not. Braun Strowman, hell no. Like Cena, maybe, like potentially, but even that's far fetched,
But he could have beaten Randy Orton.
Yeah, like Randy. I mean, so the title would have to go from Lesnar to probably Strowman to Cena to somebody else and then to Miz. Like he is so far removed from that title. It's ridiculous. So on SmackDown, though, him beating Jinder, oh my God, like people would actually cheer for him probably, but they have not done a very good job with Miz. And Miz has surprised me so much. I didn't think he was a terrible wrestler, but he should not have main evented WrestleMania when he did. But now, with what he has done, he is a fantastic talent. And, maybe they have something in store for him, but I think he would have done better on SmackDown.
Do you think Jason Jordan's going to take the title off him?
Probably. It'll be ridiculous.
Unfortunately.
Yeah.
I think
And that's a shame because Jason Jordan is not a bad wrestler. Like, I don't think any of us think he can't go in the ring. But he is not – he's not even the better of the two of American Alpha, let alone worthy of being the Intercontinental Champion. Like
he should turn heel.
I think he's going to eventually. Because
do you think this whole Kurt Angle's son is going to be a ploy or something like that?
I hope it's I hope that it's a ploy, like he did it so that way he could get over something stupid like that. But I hope that he turns heel and then, Kurt Angle is still the face and trying to help him out. And like, oh, no, my son's not bad. It's the fans. They're the ones that are wrong. And maybe make it be a joke on, Roman Reigns, like kind of sort of thing. Like, oh, it's the fans.
That would be great.
I mean, I hope they do.
Oh, my gosh.
It's Bizarro World. They're just booing Jason Jordan for no reason. Yeah, they would never do that, but that would be fantastic.
Yeah, that would be. Anyway, so let's thank our sponsor, HostGator. Are you a blogger or podcaster? Are you just not happy with your web host? You need to check out HostGator.com. You're going to find web hosting made easy and affordable. HostGator offers unlimited disk space, unlimited bandwidth, one-click script installs with a free set builder, and hands-on the best control panel out there. Stop by today and try a free demo to see how easy it is. And if you use a special coupon code OFFTHEMARK, you're going to save 25% off your web hosting packages. So what do you got to lose? Check out HostGator.com and take a bite out of our web hosting costs. Also, make sure you check out Section 86's Off the Mark page and click on the banner at the top to save big on items from WWEshop.com. So let's move on to SmackDown. Aaron, what happened in the WWE title picture?
All right, so... I need to just go back. Here's the thing.
I was going to go to someone else, but I figured I'd just not bother this time.
I appreciate it. So Shinsuke defeated John Cena cleanly in order to get the ability to take on Jinder Mahal at SummerSlam. And, Jinder then beat him, obviously using, his finishing move, the Singh brothers. And I am so perplexed by this idea because Shinsuke taking him on, that's a huge deal. And Shinsuke should have won, even if it was by DQ. If he won by DQ, then he has the right to face him at the next pay-per-view, potentially win, and they go on to Japan and Shinsuke is your champion. I get that. Or the other option is you have Cena defeat Shinsuke, by Baron Corbin, interfering. And then you have Cena take on Jinder at SummerSlam. And then Jinder, he actually goes and defeats him with Baron Corbin coming out to cash in, and then John Cena goes and stops that. And then you have another month where it's John Cena versus Baron Corbin, and then you have Cena move over to Raw. That's what you could have done. That would have made more sense. And then you have Shinsuke, who is still somewhat protected, and then he can take on Jinder to win the title. They didn't do that, though. And this just boggles my mind. Did they just think, oh, hey, we're going to throw this. This is going to be his first shot at the title, and then we're just going to squander that? Like, no. Did they not learn from Daniel Bryan? Did they not learn from CM Punk and how when you bring these people up who are the indie darlings, if it's an NXT or if it is an indie darling, you have to make the fans want something. But you don't do it in this sort of way because Daniel Bryan didn't just all of a sudden have a random title match and then he doesn't win it. No, he fought and he scratched for it. And I feel like WWE just is, they're not learning from their mistakes, or they're not learning from their successes. They're just throwing crap on the wall right now to see what sticks. And for whatever reason, and I don't hate Jinder, but for whatever reason, they decide that this is our guy and he is going to hold the title for as long as humanly possible, despite the fact that we have not increased our Indian sales that much. So I do not get this. And this boggles my mind, and it doesn't make me happy. Like this legitimately kind of pisses me off to the point where I don't want to watch SmackDown because of this.
So here is my kind of question for everybody. Is this Vince McMahon's way of saying that WWE is better than New Japan Wrestling? That even a jobber could beat the one-time best NJPW wrestler? I cannot understand this whatsoever. I mean, if you're not prepared to give Shinsuke the title, there are other ways that you could have done this match and other ways that you could have done everything so much better. I think common sense wise, I think my prediction or how I would have booked this would have been better. And even though you hate Baron Corbin, or if there's some back heat on Baron Corbin, you have Baron Corbin interfere in that match, win the title from Jinder, and then face John Cena at the pay-per-view later on that night, and that becomes a title match. And if you didn't want to give the title to Cena, you have Jinder interfere again. I don't know. Just there's so many other ways that you could have done this. The problem comes in the fact that Jinder has the title to begin with. He shouldn't have the title. He does not deserve the title. I honestly just cannot understand any concept of this unless 3MB is making their biggest comeback ever. You've got the NXT Championship. You've got the WWE Championship. All of a sudden, we're going to see Heath, baby, coming back, and maybe he'll be the Universal Champion for Christ knows why. And then you can have the 3MB Champions. That's as much creative sense as anything is going on right now. It is absolutely horrible. I cannot understand this, and it is getting to the point of I don't want to watch SmackDown. Your title should always be the main event of the night. Your title feud should always be the main event of the night. He's going on what, like second, third? He's not even like the top of the hour main event part. It's absolutely horrible. No one cares. Absolutely no one cares about your main event title. They'd rather see the U.S. title. They'd rather see the tag team titles. It's incredibly bringing down the title's credibility to absolutely nothing. It's like watching Illinois, debt crisis. That's what they're getting into.
Ooh, we got political. That's right, folks.
Yeah.
We're going to learn something about the debt crisis. Okay. So there's a general rule. I don't talk about him because I have nothing good to say about him, but I'm going to forfeit that tonight because we have gone past the point of this being stupid to this being ridiculous. SmackDown is like an inverse Raw. They do the mid-card very well. Their U.S. title scene is good. Their tag team title scene is fantastic. The Usos and the New Day were good. Their comedy segments with Breezango have been fantastic. Their main event scene is the worst that I have seen it since JBL had his reign of terror. And the reason is solely because of one man. It's Jinder Mahal. And unlike Aaron, I do hate Jinder Mahal. Not only would I say he's not a worthy champion, he's not worthy of being a championship contender. He's not worthy of being on the main roster. He's not worthy of being on NXT. He's not worthy of being in the Performance Center. He's not worthy of being in the business itself. He sucks. I'm not going to mince any words. He has no good moves. He's never cut a good promo. He doesn't even have a good look. He's a roided up freak. That's all he is. So the fact that you have this idiot beating Randy Orton, a 13-time world champion, 3 consecutive pay-per-views is stupid. The fact that you have him beating Shinsuke Nakamura, who is one of your most over superstars, one of the better entrances, and had one of the most fantastic main event matches we saw last year against Joe, is a joke. And if you were going to do a rematch, which is, it seems like how SmackDown is leading to, Nakamura's going to try to earn another title shot, why did Jinder pin him with one stupid Cobra Clutch slam? This is just not smart. It's not good long-term booking. the fact of the matter is, we saw this kind of coming when they did that stupid mess with Corbin. Baron Corbin, as weird as it is to say, should probably be the WWE champion right now. And then Nakamura should be feuding with him because they had a feud going back from Money in the Bank over you stole my title shot. Instead, we have a worthless jobber, still as champion, still wasting time, still killing the championship, and still making it so bad that even the company themselves realizes he can't main event. Like Doug said, the WWE championship should pretty much always be the main event. When Brock Lesnar shows up, he is the main event. Whether he is in the first hour or the second hour, he could open up the show. He is the main event. Under no circumstances is Jinder Mahal ever the main event. I don't care if you gave him a 60-minute Iron Man match. He's not the main event. You need to get this championship off him because, to be quite honest, he's killing this show. SmackDown is good, and yet he is so bad that I would argue he makes me not want to watch it. Despite the fact that the rest of the content on the show is actually entertaining, he is so bad that he's not worth watching. He didn't pop sales in India. He didn't boost sales. He didn't boost ratings. What has he accomplished? Like, I mean, Aaron, Andy, Doug, has he done a single thing of noteworthy since his reign as champion?
He did one thing that was actually really impressive. He was able to pin the Money in the Briefcase winner on SmackDown before SummerSlam. That's the only thing he's done that was good.
Was that
fastest WWE
That
title
was
match
not good.
in history?
Oh,
was that roll up even good? Like,
No.
didn't he
No.
watch the Schoolboy?
Yeah, kind of in a roundabout way.
yeah, and he
I mean-
botched his finisher on Shinsuke. That was horrible.
I mean, like, you know, like Cena had done it. He obviously beat Sandow the night after, one of his title defenses. So it's not the first one to lose it. But, like, what did Jinder Mahal do to earn this super push? Like, I am so stunned. And if you look at the names he's beaten AJ, he's beaten Corbin, he's beaten Orton, now he's beaten Nakamura. It's like, isn't he the guy that Finn Balor dispatched in like 4 minutes on Raw the night before he came to SmackDown? And now Jinder Mahal apparently is Brock Lesnar level? Like, I don't get it. I don't get it at all.
Because this is the only push he's going to get. And then, this is the best he's ever going to do. And there's
Is this his Make-A-Wish?
This is his... Yes.
I can make a wish. It's that he goes away and never comes back.
The next kid that makes his make-a-wish. Do you want John Cena? No. Have Jinder lose the title. I don't care to who. Just make sure he loses. That would be awesome.
Like, I don't actively root for people to get injured, but I'm going to be honest. If I heard that Jinder was out the way Big Cass was, I wouldn't shed a tear. I'm not saying I want him to get hurt. I'm just saying I wouldn't be sad if it happened. Go away. I just dislike his character that much. I would rather watch Roman Reigns hold the title for a year than I would ever want to see him in the main event again. Yeah, yes, 100%.
A year?
For all of the crap that we give Roman Reigns, we all can name good things that Roman Reigns has done.
Mm-hmm.
None of us can name a good thing that Jinder Mahal has ever done.
I'm thinking.
No, there is nothing.
I was also trying to figure out if Baron Corbin has done any other moves besides, choke slam, clothesline, slam, suplex.
He has the boss man thing where he runs outside the ring, he slides underneath, and that's a pretty cool looking thing. He had that cool end of days where him, Ziggler, and Styles had that little like zigzag end of days combo. He had the punch that was so tall that Austin Aries didn't even have to duck. He just ran underneath it. I feel like that was a classic moment.
That was a classic moment.
I mean, here's what I would say, right? We did our fantasy draft. If we did 100 rounds each, would anybody pick Jinder Mahal?
I would pick
100 rounds?
100 rounds.
So that's 400
rounds.
wrestlers.
So of all the wrestlers available in the world, if we each had 100 rounds, would anybody take Jinder?
I would say 100 rounds.
Would anyone have taken Jinder prior to him being the WWE champion?
No, definitely not.
That is my point. He wouldn't have been picked in a 400-round fantasy draft. That is not a guy who should be your champion.
Unless I could do 3MB, in which case then I guess I would have taken him. But I think I already took Drew McIntyre, so I don't know.
I would have taken Heath Slater.
I would take both of them. Drew McIntyre I've always thought had potential. Heath Slater has potential. Jinder Mahal?
So, but Roger, you brought up something very interesting. Baron Corbin, and we touched on it. He lost his Money in the Bank briefcase days before SummerSlam, which, of course, was just shocking what SmackDown is doing and what they're doing with Baron Corbin. He obviously loses to Cena then. And so, on SmackDown this past week, he was the ref for the main event. Andy, what are they going to do with Baron? Like, what's next for him? Because, I mean, do they put him in the main event scene? I mean, in which case, what's the point of him losing the briefcase? Like, what are they going to do with him?
Well, I don't know why he lost the briefcase. I'm surprised that that it wasn't him versus Cena and the briefcase was on the line. That's what I thought they were going to do. But why have him lose it? That means you waste an entire pay-per-view on that guy, and then that's it. It's over and done with. That was a big mistake. They should have never done that. He should have been like putting it on the line, saying, I can beat this person, I can beat this person, blah, blah, blah. Because when he went to cash it in, at least, everyone was cheering that, oh my gosh, finally we're going to have a different champion. After he was getting booed, they were cheering him over Jinder because no one likes Jinder. He's like, Roman Reigns is above Jinder, if that does anything. But, but yeah, so I don't know what the point of that was. But I don't know what you do with him now because he was, okay, so is he going to be hanging out with Owens now? That's potential, but then what exactly is the payoff going to be? Is it going to be they're going to go Survivor Series and somehow they're going to have a match at Royal Rumble? I don't know. But yeah, I just don't know what you do with him at this point.
What officially has happened, I don't know. What has been rumored behind the scenes is apparently Baron Corbin has done some stuff on Twitter that has upset a lot of people. He has refused to take down some tweets that may have been very political and very anti what WWE is trying to go for. So you're going to continue to see the burial of Baron Corbin right now. The fact that he was reduced to a referee, I think, was a part mock to him. I think you'll see him come out and absolutely get crushed by AJ Styles in the Open Challenge. And you're going to see Baron, if Baron Corbin can survive the burial that he's about to get, he has lost all main event potential. Of course, with SmackDown's main event, maybe you don't want to be in that kind of even talk, but he is going to become one of the biggest jobbers you're going to see all around. You're going to see a lot of people possibly beating him to build up their own status. You might see Chad Gable beat him just in a humbling aspect, just to make sure he knows that he will go along with the program, social media wise and everything. It might take Baron a while to get back whatever it is that he has officially done, or whoever he is pissed off. This is bad. I mean, the future does not look good for Baron Corbin. He better be, saying his prayers and eating his vitamins, because he's soon to be future endeavored, I believe.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you that he must have obviously, did he say something about Vince? I mean, I don't know what he did.
No, he said something. He promoted like a clothing brand that has neo-Nazi ties.
Yeah. So very,
and he refused to take it down.
Timing. Well,
right.
Well, then you know what? Stay off of the Twitter. Here's the thing. Corbin is an idiot. There's no question about it. I'm sorry. If your boss tells you to take something down on Twitter and you're about to be in line to be the WWE champion, you take it down off of Twitter. Know the time to make a stand. Know the time to just be like, it ain't that big of a deal. Having said that, and even if Corbin needed to be punished, and I'm not disagreeing with any of that, again, I go back to creative. Let's say that you wanted to punish Corbin and have him lose his Money in the Bank briefcase. And let's say for some bizarre reason you wanted Jinder to walk out of SummerSlam. Oh, I don't know. Maybe you have Corbin cash in at SummerSlam and then Jinder rolls him up in the middle of the match. And that way you don't waste a loss on Shinsuke Nakamura. You still bury Corbin and you continue the feud logically. It's like they got mad. They threw a temper tantrum and said, okay, we're going to punish him tonight and we're going to just make it up on the fly. Again, look, Corbin's dumb. I think Doug is completely right. I wouldn't even be surprised if he gets demoted back down to NXT. And it's similar to what we see with Enzo. I think he is not going to be champion for a very long time. Many years ago, Triple H took the heat for the Click incident. And it took him a good year, basically eating crow before he became King of the Ring the next year. And he recovered, except for, I don't necessarily know if Hunter recovers if WWE is in its 1997 status. Baron Corbin is in a Shark Tank right now. There's a lot of guys. A glorious man, in fact, is waiting to take his spot as the number one heel on SmackDown. So I am not so sure that Corbin does recover from this because A, they may not trust him. B, he was getting better. He's not good. But let's make no mistakes about this. He is not an elite wrestler. He's not even a good talker. And I wouldn't be surprised if Bobby Roode outshines him so badly that they just go, you know what? There's our new guy at the top of the heel list. So Corbin, sometimes you miss your shot, and maybe he needs to go and humble himself in the independents. Maybe he does what Drew McIntyre did and works himself up. But I think he blew his shot, and he only has himself to blame, in my opinion.
Yeah, you brought up a great point about that too. The fact that he needs to be humble, number one. But I think that something needs to be done with him, just overall, just like a reality check. Like, hey, we can let you go, and you can work it out in the Indies because he's never been there. He's just been from the Performance Center, and that's it, or NFL, then the Performance Center. But I hope that he changes his ways very soon. Also, the one thing that really hurt him was Talking Smack, because I think he was becoming more relatable when he was on Talking Smack. They removed that. Now he has no platform like he used to, so that's where you're going to get hit hard. We were bringing up, we've talked about a lot of negative things. Let's talk about some positive things that's going on SmackDown. So right now, the Usos regained the titles actually on the pre-show of all things. They did beat the New Day, who just became tag champions. I'm surprised that this happened, but what do you think the payoff is going to be on this, Roger?
So I wouldn't say I'm surprised. I mean, in the pre-show or in our predictions, I said that while I picked New Day, I think I had this 55-45. I could have seen the Usos winning. They've done fantastic work. I'm not even necessarily mad that they won the titles back because A, it allows a potential rematch with Breezango, and I loved their first match. I think the backstage skits were hysterical. I would love to see the Fashion Police go round two. They could do basically an entire skit of nothing but sequels. Tag team title match 2 with a vengeance. There's a lot of potential where if they want to get creative. I think you've got the new team of Gable and potentially the world's greatest alphas. Maybe they get a title shot. They can advance this Hype Brothers storyline and letting them break up. So I think the Usos winning is a very good thing. I'm curious to see where they go with New Day, but look, the match was great, and I think they should probably take a little break from one another, but I wouldn't mind seeing them fight again at the Rumble after they've kind of given themselves some time to cool down, let them go their separate ways. Maybe New Day builds himself back up and gives them the title shot because their chemistry is undeniable. When they're in the ring, it's money. It's just really good.
This is where I start to go again with the creative being bad. I don't mind the Usos with the title. They're a very deserving tag team right now. They're, I think, more over than they've ever been. They're at the peak of their performances. Their matches with the New Day, wonderful match. But I think the hot shotting of the title is just going to keep going back and forth between them because they don't know what they're going to do. They don't have, like, your next best tag team is Breezango. I mean, I like what they're doing with their skits and everything, but you don't have a viable contender for the title other than New Day and Usos. And the only way to keep on the feud is for them to keep going at it back and back and back and back and back and forth. You're going to see probably the New Day get their titles back just so that the Usos can have a retitle match, and it's going to go back and back and back and forth. I think that you're going to see them do the same thing that they did with Charlotte and Sasha. This is going to end up being very, very bad. Two teams that can do great matches, but people are going to get tired of this. How many times are we going to see a different combination of the Uso or New Day versus the Usos just to throw a new kink into it? We saw the Usos win at SmackDown. We saw them win at SummerSlam. I need this to be over with. I need new tag team contenders. Whether it is that you do the same thing that Raw did, in which you get two of your mid-card guys or upper mid-card guys who aren't fighting for the main event title, put them together so that they have a viable, whether you do another like Randy Orton, Wyatt thing, not them, but something like that, put them together and give them a title shot run. You got to do something. And again, I go back to creative, not knowing what they're going to do. And it's going to be, again, the hot shot. I'm not looking forward to this. I think it's a shame if they do continue this on.
Well, and one of the things Roger had mentioned was, the world's greatest American alpha tag team. There's that possibility. They obviously teased it with Shelton Benjamin coming back. That is a potential opponent for the Usos. I do like Roger's idea of New Day going away for a little bit and then circling back around. I think about what they did with AJ Styles and John Cena, because their feud had lasted, I think it was even before SummerSlam, and it lasted until the Royal Rumble. And we weren't sick of it because they didn't have 10, 12 matches, and they were spaced out far enough, and you had people involved in that it felt fresh. And obviously with the tag team, it does make it a little bit tougher. But what I would do personally is I end the feud here, you move it on, and then you have them circle back around a little bit later. I think that the perfect opponent for the Usos actually is Fabrice, Breezango. That'd be the perfect opponent at Hell in a Cell. You don't have to have it in a cell. You just have a normal match. They can get their, they don't even have to win. They just have to have another match. Be a great way to do that. But to Doug's point, I totally agree with you, is that with the breakup of all these tag teams, you don't have a whole lot going on. You really do have. It'll be 4 because, the world's greatest American alpha tag team, that one is going to be, they have to build up. You can't just all of a sudden throw them out there. And even still, you only have one real heel tag team, right? Because Ascension, I'm not going to count. It's really Usos. And
they're a comedy heel team, I would say, at this point.
Yeah, but they're not. If, let's just say the New Day won the titles back and they aren't going to be taking on the Usos. They can take on the Ascension, but do we really think the Ascension is going to do anything?
Real quick question. Is this something that could lead to the bringing up of Authors of Pain?
I was just about to say, I think the Authors of Pain could definitely be coming up to SmackDown.
And I'd be okay with that. The only thing I'm starting to get a little scared about is, and we're going to talk about in a second with Bobby Roode coming up, is Ty Dillinger's there. And we don't see him at all. And Ty Dillinger is somebody who I feel is a talent, and somebody that he shouldn't be going for the U.S. title necessarily, but he's a guy who you can put on the early part of the card or in tag teams. And Sami Zayn's rarely featured now, and Sami Zayn is a huge talent. So I'm a little worried about what's going on with SmackDown. And they have, I like 2 hours, but I feel like they're not utilizing the time very well. And we're letting a lot of people go by the wayside. So Bobby Roode now is there. And if you have Authors of Pain come up, that means that a tag team is going to basically be going away, so to speak.
Ascension.
Yeah. And maybe they should go back to NXT. That might be good.
And Ascension should be back in NXT because they're more over down there. And Authors of Pain, even though I would like to see them come up, I don't think that they should be coming up yet. I think that you should wait a little bit longer, maybe after WrestleMania, then bring them up. But at this time, I think it's too soon for them.
What about, like I said, bringing up some higher upper people? Do you see Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens getting back together?
I think they should.
I don't. I think that's a red herring massively.
I think you should do Ty Dillinger and Sami Zayn should form a tag team. That's what I think it should be.
I actually, Doug, I like your. This is something I had thought about too. Is I like the idea of Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens forming a tag team. And it might sound very strange because you're like, oh, what, is Sami's going to go heel? No. Instead, Owens goes to Sami and says, look, who knows you better than me? Who knows me better than you? I know your strengths and weaknesses just like you know mine. We can be a tag team where they team together for one purpose and one purpose only, and that is to get the gold. So they can go and they can battle against faces, they could battle against heels, and it wouldn't be that weird because you would have, I guess, a heel versus heel style, but then you could also have a face versus a heel style with Sami. And Owens could be just doing it just so that way he could get ahead a little bit. And, we know there's going to be an inevitable turn, But I actually like that. That's something I had thought about too, Doug. And so, I hope that they do. I honestly think that would be a good storyline, which means that there's no chance it'll ever happen, but I would like to see it.
I'm going to say, here's my one argument against that. Didn't I just watch that with the Shield?
Yes, but this is whoa. That's Raw. This is SmackDown.
And
nobody
both
who watches
are face.
Raw watches SmackDown. So you can have the same thing happen, like a Dean Ambrose versus The Miz for the Intercontinental title for like 5 months in a row.
That's right. I forget that obviously they're separate brands. So if you watch Monday, you didn't watch Tuesday.
Well, and they are both faces technically over there. Whereas, I'm saying literally, you're going to have a heel and a face. So it would actually be closer to Sheamus and Cesaro from about a year ago. It would be closer to what they were doing, when they were battling, because Cesaro was getting the cheers where Sheamus was getting the boos, and it was actually pretty fun to watch.
I like your idea. I do think it's been done a little bit too much, the odd couple tag team, even though their history. I actually like the idea of Dillinger and Sammy more for one reason. Kevin Owens has a spot. He is a featured wrestler every week. So as awesome as that would be for Sammy, I think Dillinger is underutilized. I think he's over with the crowd, and him and Sammy make a good tag team. You have something there. You can build a division that really, really, really needs some depth. And if you bring the Authors of Pain up, the Authors of Pain versus Sammy and Dillinger would be amazing. Just because Sammy takes a beating like nobody, and Dillinger is that perfect sympathetic face who always gets killed. It's the DIY storyline all over again. So, not that anyone watches NXT, so luckily it's totally fresh because that's on a different brand.
Right.
Yeah, and we've been saying this for months, and I know we sound like a broken record. Why do you have 2 divisions of tag teams when you don't even have one full division? You have enough across both shows to fill one division, and that is it. And that's barely. There's like 6 teams. That's not enough to fill 2 different divisions. Like, come on already. Put the women's division on one show, put the tag team division on a different show, let them each brand themselves as this is where you tune in to see women's wrestling. This is where you tune in to see tag team wrestling. 205 Live is where you don't tune in to see if you want to see cruiser wrestling. Like, it just is what it is. And market them as different.
If we can have an entire hour about 205 Live, I can complain how it's not like the CWC, but that's a different story. But, we were just talking about Kevin Owens, what happened with him. So, he did have a match against AJ Styles. Of course, AJ did retain. And AJ Styles now has brought back the Open US Challenge. And, Aaron, did you think that this was a good move to bring since, what are we going to do with Owens?
Yeah, I think it's a good idea to bring it up because we are going to see some people up there. I think Ty Dillinger is a good candidate for maybe next week. Obviously, Baron Corbin will probably do it at some point in time. You could have a number of people come in to take on AJ Styles and have it be a surprise, which is something I love that John Cena had done. But it will be pretty cool. The thing I am wondering, Kevin Owens, and obviously Doug and I both had the idea of him and Sammy. Probably not going to happen. It looks like it's going to be him and Shane are going to be having a lot of tension for the next couple of months, which will probably lead to the rumored 5-on-5 match at Survivor Series. Would not surprise me at all. I just don't know what you're going to do with Owens because you have to have something else happen to him. Maybe you could have him and Jinder go at it, and Shane quote unquote screws him out of the title. But something is going to happen with that. However, though, I think that, and also to Roger's point, is that the mid card is honestly so stacked, and it's mid card, in quotes, because AJ Styles is the main eventer, Kevin Owens is the main eventer, but they're relegating them to the mid card, which is incredibly stacked right now, and that's where we're getting the best matches. So I actually think SmackDown is going to be pretty fun to watch up until Survivor Series. I think that we're going to get some really entertaining stuff. I just hope that the pay-per-view that they have in between then is actually good too.
Yeah, because to be honest, and we've said this, the SmackDown pay-per-views have sucked. Like, to be perfectly honest, the SmackDown show is oftentimes far superior to the SmackDown pay-per-views, which is a very Eric Bischoff way about going things. Part of it is the fact that the SmackDown pay-per-views unfortunately have to close with Jinder Mahal, and that tells you everything you need to know about why the shows probably suck. I'm a little confused in the sense of like, you have all this talent, and I think the winner, if we were doing grades, the winner of the recent events to me is Bobby Roode. I mean, you talking about picking a spot. Corbin throws away his push. So now he not only loses his money in the bank briefcase and he's tossed out, you have Jinder Mahal flopping at every single turn, and Kevin Owens is basically prior occupied with Shane McMahon. If you have someone primed to step up and say, be the number one heel, grab the proverbial brass ring, AJ Styles versus Bobby Roode. That would be a fantastic United States Championship title match and a good way to see if Roode is ready for the main event on the main scene. Obviously, the crowd reacted to him well. He did very well in NXT. I wouldn't be surprised if Bobby Roode is your WWE champion by February or April or whenever the next heel gets the championship, because it's not like Corbin's going to get it anytime soon. And after we get it off this abomination, who is your next big heel?
Besides Kevin Owens?
Yeah. I mean, and assuming that he's going to be occupied with Shane McMahon for the foreseeable future.
Right.
I don't know who is in front of Bobby Roode. He can cut right in line and go. I mean, that's why I thought Nakamura winning would have been so great. Just imagine Nakamura's championship celebration. The Nakamura dynasty has began, and you have Glorious hit. And he immediately says, I had an NXT title rematch. I beat you for this NXT championship. I want a shot. And let him use the line of Shane McMahon. This is the land of opportunity. I am a main event guy. I'm going to go cut straight to the front of the line. And the SmackDown first pay-per-view is Nakamura versus Bobby Roode. You have Jinder complain about how he's being pushed aside for somebody who doesn't deserve a title shot. And you can let Bobby Roode DDT him into the concrete and we never see him again. That'd be fantastic. Or it'd be glorious. I just thought there was more build. And I'm glad Bobby's there. I thought he did a good job of debuting against English. I do have a question for all of you, though. Bobby Roode gets cheered. Bobby Roode gets cheered a lot. He's almost at the point where AJ Styles was getting so cheered that they eventually simply had to turn him face. Is there a risk of Bobby Roode running into the same thing? For one, with that theme song being so amazing that there's not a ton of likable faces that they have to throw at Bobby to just get him a ton of heel heat. He could very easily end up going, like if it's Bobby Roode, Randy Orton, we know who's getting cheered. AJ will get the cheers. Sammy will get the cheers. I'd even say Chad Gable will get the cheers. Nakamura will get the cheers. After that, might have a problem.
Well, I think that they hadn't taken on, in English. And so I think they're probably trying to see what route they want to go, with the crowd and everything. He cut a little bit of a heel promo. Maybe they're going to have him go the tweener route. I think that there's a lot of different options that they could go with him. But personally, I think that they go face. That's what I would do.
I think that you're going to see the announcers go that this was, just like the crowd after WrestleMania. It's Bizarro Land, and that's why the crowd was cheering him. He's a heel. And it was very interesting to see that Bobby Roode was able to play into the crowd. So I actually had the same question for everybody else, too, going into this. Do you see him as a heel or a face? And it's going to be interesting, but I do think that they will do the whole let him actually create a bigger heel promo later on. Not this. This was his quote unquote moment, his welcome to the major leagues, welcome to WWE, being on SmackDown and everything like that. Let him have this moment, let him be cheered and everything like that. But next week we might see him come out and be like yes, everybody loves me. I'm doing the corporate thing. I'm bringing back prestige to this to the SmackDown brand. I would have actually loved to see him come out actually during the open challenge. I really thought that that's what it was going to be. When AJ Styles opens up the show with the open challenge, I was just waiting for that music to hit, and I was very, very actually sad when it didn't. Going back to what KO is going to do probably next, I would say what I would do is I'd have him fight Shinsuke for the number one contendership again, and have Shane screw him out of the winning the number one contendership somehow. And then you have Nakamura going back up against Jinder and continuing your feud between Shane McMahon and KO. As for Bobby Roode, I think that it would have been great to see him with him versus AJ Styles. I think would have been great. Going back to their, TNA roots, they know each other. They can put on a good match. Or a glorious match even. But is that one of those events that you want to wait for a big moment, a big show? whether that be your next SummerSlam, your Survivors, not necessarily Survivor Series. I could see him joining on one of the teams, whether it be team, if they have a team SmackDown versus Team Raw or something along the Survivor Series. But eventually you will have that Bobby Roode versus AJ Styles moment. I'm not looking forward to it as much as I'm looking forward to AJ Styles versus Nakamura, but you can keep teasing little hints at that. But to Roger's point, Bobby Roode is coming up at the exact right time for Bobby Roode. He is going to take over that Baron Corbin push. He is going to just fit right into that push and just take it away and go amazing places with it. I would not be surprised if they slingshot him into the main event status really, really quick. And hopefully they do put the title on him, because Bobby Roode is one of those people that I think is better with the title than ever without it.
Do you agree with that, Aaron? Do you think that he needs a title on him to shine, or is he one of those that he's kind of like a Sami Zayn, like you give him the title as like, all right, you've done your duty, so here's the title?
He doesn't need the title, but I do agree with Doug that Bobby Roode looks good with the title on, and I feel that he then is a little bit cockier, and he can sit there and be like, look, well, I got the title. I can back it up. And his run in TNA, so he was the longest reigning TNA champion that they ever had for the TNA title, not the NWA. So he was the longest running TNA champion. And his run was totally fine. But I liked, he would come out, he'd cut a promo, a good heel promo, and he did a very good job. And I felt that really helped him out. When he didn't have the title, not that it was bad, but it I think helped him out a little bit more with the title.
I mean, I think it plays into his character. I mean, he's like a cross between a Ric Flair, Triple H, and Rick Rude to me. Like if you kind of took elements for all three of them, I think you get Bobby Roode. And to me, a guy like that, especially with his whole gimmick of being very Manhattan, he's above you. He believes he's the best. A title belt around him makes sense, because it's the difference between like desperate trying to back up his words, Bobby Roode, as opposed to I'm the man, you wait on my time. Everything I'd say makes sense when he is the champion. It makes sense for him to be glorious. It makes sense for him to say you wait on Bobby Roode's time, for him to be I'm the one who runs the company because I'm the man with the title. So yeah, I mean, I have no problem with him coming right into the main event scene, because to me, he is a guy who is believable. And I mean, for one, he can go in the ring. He cuts a fantastic promo. He's entertaining. I mean, I said it before and I'll say it again. He's coming up at the right time. And he is the type of guy. I wouldn't even mind it, kind of to what your guys' idea was with Sammy and Kevin, Bobby Roode and Kevin Owens. Like, that is a great way to introduce Bobby Roode to the main roster, whereas he joins Kevin Owens' crusade against Shane McMahon. And then, those are the co-captains. And, and then you have you could even take this an interesting way where Bobby Roode decides I'm not going to be the one who gets screwed by Kevin Owens. And he turns on KO before Owens can do it to him. And then Owens is trying to get back up with Sami Zayn, who doesn't trust him, and Jericho, who doesn't trust him. And, you could go places with that. But I'm glad he went to SmackDown. Bobby Roode, as great as he was, would have been buried on Raw and done nothing, because he has no chance in the main event scene, much like Miz. But on SmackDown, he can be champion. So, glorious decision.
Do you think it would be glorious if he beat Jinder for the title?
I think our next podcast would just be playing the music of Glorious in a loop for the entire match. It'd just be glorious. That's all I'd be saying.
The last point I want to make before we end the show is that when you think about WWE and especially their main event scene, obviously you have people that, are their handpicked. Brock Lesnar and Roman Reigns would be, Braun Strowman even, those are people that they handpicked. But really the rest of the kind of like big scene where you have Samoa Joe, you have Seth Rollins, Dean Ambrose, AJ Styles, Kevin Owens, Bobby Roode. I mean, those guys are TNA or indie guys, and it's so funny to see that, number one, TNA squandered all that talent, but number two, that WWE finally realized that there's a lot of really amazing talent out there, and if we're able to give them that stage, they're going to be able to make us money. And I think that they're finally realizing that. Obviously, Shinsuke is another one, and Sammy too, but a lot of really great talent there, and I think that they're going to do wonders if they put them in the right position and they keep giving them the right ammunition for the fans.
And one thing I want to end before we end the show, I want to say one more thing about NXT. NXT Takeover Brooklyn 3, I will say, was probably one of their at least top 5 shows that they've done so far. I was really impressed on every match. Every match, there was like a couple of matches that I was just shocked about, but overall there was not a match you're like, well, that wasn't the greatest match. They were all great, and I'm really happy with NXT. Doug, what were your thoughts on NXT?
I enjoyed it. I don't think it was their best show ever, but it wasn't hard to beat SummerSlam. And it's really, really sad when your developmental can do way better than your main roster at the second biggest event of the year. It's absolutely sad. So I'm happy for NXT. They keep doing their thing and let WWE do their own thing and truly make it 3 different brands.
I mean, to Aaron's point, if you look at the main event talent, it's not a surprise that the people who were in NXT, and not even just the main event, but the women's divisions and some of the other divisions, it's because of NXT. And Triple H's vision has, kind of come to pasture. If you look at sports, right, when you have a good farm system in baseball or you draft well and you see that result 3 to 4 years later, that's what we're seeing now. The people that we saw tearing it up in ROH and NXT are now on the main stage. And the only thing I have to say about NXT is that you look at that opening match and they had a more creative finish for Gargano and Almas than I saw the entire breadth of SummerSlam, essentially. And that to me is the difference between NXT and the main roster. That NXT has a story. They have a plan. They call back to things. They use their history, and they're doing something going forward. Oftentimes when you watch SummerSlam, you're just like, Raw gets its main event right. They've been on fire as far as Brock and Braun and Roman, and they've done a great job. Can't say so much for the rest of the card. SmackDown does their mid-card very well. Obviously, the main event, I said my piece about gender. I don't need to say it again. NXT doesn't really have a weakness, and their roster isn't as strong as it used to be. So if you could book SmackDown the way you booked NXT, you got the talent on SmackDown to put out some of the best television we could possibly see, but you're kind of under the thumb of Vince, and I don't know who's to blame, whether it's Road Dogg or whether it's Vince or who's making the call, but I know that there's clearly something different about NXT than there is about SmackDown, even though SmackDown has at least triple the amount of talent, in my opinion, that NXT has. So good job for NXT with taking what is a very average roster and putting on, I'd say, a top 5 to top 10 show all time. Asuka Ember Moon, not as good as Sasha versus Bayley, but it was a really, really good match. I don't want to take anything away from those ladies. Rude McIntyre was okay. I don't think it was a bad match. I don't think it was a great match. I think the moment that they created at the end of the match with Re-Dragon and Adam Cole, that was like, I want to see what happens on NXT next. And those are the kind of things that I wish the main roster did, where you were excited to see what happened the next week because they had great surprise debuts and good storytelling and things like that. So let's see what's going forward. NXT continues to turn, despite the fact that they lose talent. They just lost Bobby Roode, and I guarantee you they'll have somebody else to fill a spot in a month or two.
Yeah, I agree. And to your point, I cannot wait to see Adam Cole and what he does in NXT. I think that Adam Cole is a tremendous talent, and I think they're probably going to use him as being the face of NXT probably for a couple of years even. I could see them keeping him down there because he's young. He's only like 28, I want to say. And you could keep him down there for a couple of years and really get polished. Not that he isn't polished, but really like to WWE's system, and then move him up at the right time. You have to make sure, because timing is everything. If you move him up too soon, maybe he gets lost in the shuffle. Too late, then he's past his prime. So, but either way, I think NXT is actually going to be as good as or not as good as what it was, but we're seeing the second best helping of NXT as we saw probably when we were there at Dallas.
I completely agree. So that's all the time we have for this month's show. If you're into the Twitter, you follow the show at OffMark86. I want to thank 86 Productions for hosting and editing the podcast, and I want to thank all of our listeners for taking the time to download and listen to the show. And for Doug Hahn, Roger Cave, and Aaron Hughes, I am Andrew Hughes, and until next time, we'll see you in the ring.